and now we're live to the world via multiple channels. As I click go live, it's supposed to at least.
I see the count thing going.
Yeah, you're going. You're live.
Oh,
so we're here. Yeah, we're
the
here.
Dream
for the
Show.
people.
Comma. Is there a comma? Live.
There's not a comma.
There's not a comma.
This is the Dream Show live.
But it's live. It's not always live.
Not always.
But it's live right now. We were talking about that right before we came on air, and there's all the SNL like 50th anniversary stuff or whatever. I guess is kind of what was triggering some of that stuff.
Oh, it is 50 years old now, isn't it?
Yeah. And so there's all this stuff going on for it, and so I don't know. I just had that I don't know. Maybe somebody said it in a way or whatever in one of the things, but I was like, oh, the show is just called Saturday Night, but it's live.
Yeah.
It's not live. It's not really named Saturday Night Live.
Live from New York. It's Saturday night.
It's Saturday night.
Yeah.
They said that directly. But I was like, but it is Saturday night though.
It's Saturday night and it's live.
So there's always been signs, I think, of the spectrum existing. And I just didn't really know what I didn't know.
Yeah, that tracks.
It's clearly live on Saturday night. So yeah, that all made just logical sense.
So were you a big SNL fan growing up? Did you like find it as you got older? Like what was SNL for you?
I mean, it was definitely a thing that was on TV on Saturday night out in the country versus other shows. To be honest, as a young guy, I think I probably preferred more like In Living Color to SNL. Okay. And not for any necessarily specific reason. It's just I think Fox was like the new like channel in general.
That's like a generational thing too. Like
The Simpsons, all that kind of stuff was like a thing when I was young. Like one of my cousins couldn't watch The Simpsons and like stuff like that, and
like wasn't allowed. Yeah.
Obviously, some people weren't really watching In Living Color for, not the best reasons either. But I thought that it was great stuff. But I like comedy stuff in general, and then
I liked In Living Color. I mean, that's where Jim Carrey got his start, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So it's just a version of SNL. So yeah, like I liked it, but it wasn't like necessarily something that was all. And neither one of them were all, necessarily like, oh, that's my favorite thing. But if I was up on Saturday night at home, and I was,
I feel you.
Out in the country, we had like 2 or 3 channels that would work if you could turn the antenna the right way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Get them right.
Was that on here where we were having that conversation about like antennas and radio waves and the fact that like if you move this piece of metal right in the air, you're intercepting images.
How crazy is that?
It's wild.
I saw. So here's another little thing for you today. I saw a video. I don't know how true this is now. So I just saw this on a video. So apparently the Dust Bowl was like really, really bad, worse than we like think it was. And one of the things that this person said is that it created such static electricity in the air from the like particles of the dust and stuff, I guess, colliding together and things, is that if you would come in contact with another person, it would like knock you down sometimes, similar to touching like a live wire, because there was such a static charge of air built up in the air.
I almost want to research that. That
sounds crazy. But apparently that there was so much sand, like people are just dying of like sand pneumonia.
That makes sense. And I mean, it makes sense because like, I mean, when there's a lot of fog, that's one of the coolest things that I've ever seen is like if there's a lot of fog or moisture in the air, is that if you go up and get close to one of the electrical lines, like up in the air when you're doing electrical work, if you have on like the rubber gloves that they work on, the water particles are dirty, and so they have like dirt and stuff in them, and so it makes them electrically charged. And so when you put your hand up close to the like electricity, it'll start jumping across the outside of your glove, and you'll like see like little, like it looks like little like electrical bugs like running up your hand and running around. It's like the coolest thing ever.
It sounds cool to see. I don't know if I would want to partake
It's pretty
in that
wild,
experience. Yeah,
but hype. In theory, you're safe.
electricity is crazy, but I think it's everywhere. It's everything, and that was really like interesting in that way. It's like, I don't know, makes sense. And then kind of like, I guess a lot of sand has minerals and metals and
Yeah,
different things that could be conductors, like mixed into it to a degree,
yeah.
also. So it's a lot that it's plausible. I'd say that, and it definitely sounded plausible to me. But yeah, so there we go. There's just a little fun fact of the day for the dream show. We'll try to start with that stuff. Maybe we'll come in with some interesting things that are completely unrelated to each other, even maybe in that first five to.
We could call that segment in the beginning of the show Steven's Wikipedias.
Mm, I like that. I like that. So
Do
guys, that's
people
one of
still
the.
Wikipedia? Is that still a thing?
So if
With
I
Chat
Google
GPT.
if I Google something, then I will probably end up on Wikipedia sometimes. Like it's okay. But definitely, like,
I,
yeah, definitely
I wrote many a college paper off of Wikipedia.
I'll be chat GPT and stuff for sure.
It's the thing about ChatGPT that I've noticed that's interesting is that the younger generation that started using it, they're talking about it the same way that we talked about Google to our parents. Like when our parents would ask us a question, and that generation would be like, "How do you do such and such?" You're like, "I don't know, Google it." Now they're like, "I don't know, talk to ChatGPT," and they're right. Like you just go, "Hey, how do I do this thing?" And I'm trying to do this specific way, and I need you to tell me, and it tells you instead of you having to go to Google, search through all the stuff, decide what's right. Like I don't know,
Is it
it's pretty
how does
cool.
it are you trust it?
So it's the same way that I feel like that we have a built up lens of how to like filter through bullshit in the internet. Is that like you can tell when it's telling you something wrong a lot of times. But I'm for sure it can probably get some like misinformation or some stuff wrong that if you don't know what you're talking about, you can be like, yeah, that's totally it. But isn't that the same thing as going and reading a book and getting the information and being like, oh, this is how you do it. And then somebody goes, actually, they wrote another book that corrects that. You should go read that. Like, isn't that the exact same thing?
By the way, like, screw that second dude if that's how he approaches the conversation. Well, actually, it's like, I'm done. Even if you're right, if you come at me like that, dude, I'll die on this hill that I know is wrong almost now. If you come at me like that,
You can't handle the well, actually, guy.
ugh, like I'm that dude too sometimes. And I
Me
tried.
too.
That's the thing. I've a character trait that I've tried to do better at, because man, I'm not always right. And again, going back to the other thing, is like I just didn't know what I didn't know sometimes, about some stuff. So now it's just like, man, there's a way to approach stuff like that without just actualing, or, you know, throwing in your and again, you could be right a lot of times too, but that's okay. There's a way to
So how
hit
do you
that note.
present your information? Like put this in like your jujitsu perspective. Like say you're sitting there and somebody's talking about something. And this is something that early in the show we've had this conversation of like it's okay for them to be wrong is one of the answers. I don't want that answer. I want the answer of
Oh,
when you're having the conversation and you know the the information that they are sharing is either putting them in the situation that they're trying to not end up in or presenting a new situation that creates a problem.
how do I address
Like
that?
how do you
It's
present your information when I'm trying not to say when you know you're right, because I know that that's not the right
mm,
answer either.
yeah, and that's the thing, dude. And so before everything, like anytime that you're right, just in general, at least for me, I hope I'm aware of that if I really, really know something like fully, because I think that's a trap, that it's really hard to just know a lot of anything. And so then the other thing with like in training is like they'll find out one way or the other.
Okay.
That's the thing too. Is so I can present it to you in a few ways, and the best way that I've been doing in the last while that I can remember, and I haven't really been necessarily dealing with it much in the last while with the way that we've been doing the different games and stuff like that, because it kind of answers the questions right away for you. Sometimes unless you're talking about a different situation altogether. But I generally would just show things that, or say, this is what I've found successful, or this is what I've found in that other practice that you're talking about doing. Is like, yes, that looks great, but when I've tried that, I have, ran into this level of resistance, or, this problem that felt greater for me, than the other one. But then you may say that feels like a lesser magnitude problem for you than the other thing. And then okay, then you just have to find out in the moment, and then if you're right, you'll be right. And if you're wrong, you'll be wrong. And it's so situational, dude, especially if you want to talk about like competing, or a match, a live, match kind of scenario where it's like a one and done
Yeah.
kind of thing. It makes it a lot different uh to see it clearly, always, too, because you may not see that same scenario again for a really long time.
Yeah.
There's a like an instance I think about for myself as the athlete, and Richie as the coach, is like, we done tons and tons and tons of the like overtime rounds and Monday night for, just training. And he'd seen and been in there with me for every night for, for a long, long time, and been in matches, all the stuff, and so I had gotten to the point, it's at least in training, a lot of times, is that almost like, there was a very few people that if we were doing the OT rounds, is that I couldn't get your arm
Mm.
if I got to start the way that I was allowed to start,
You starting from the back or starting from spider web?
starting with a spider web.
Starting with spider
Yeah.
web. You were gonna finish the arm if you got to start there.
Yeah, I would almost exclusively go arm, and I know a lot of people were still doing a little bit of both at that point more, but people were definitely starting to trend again towards back, because
Yeah.
it was definitely more control, and then the
And you
arm
still
bar,
have the option the arm if
it still
the back
presents
didn't
itself,
go. Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So then that's that thing again, right? It presents a numbers advantage to you that you may not be aware of sometimes, and numbers don't always
Yeah.
compute in live competition stuff, but it's again, it helps steer your decision or something like that. But
Right.
so, but like I was able to, you've seen how I do when I start and it was just like overly successful. And so I'd used it in matches. I was getting my butt kicked in one. When it got to OTs, I would get the guy's arm and win. uh so I was like, this is it. If I get my shot, that's what I'm doing, you know.
Yeah.
And so I had a match, and so this was a single OT, which was a different thing, because usually you would get like a rebuttal, or whatever. If you miss, you get another round. If they miss two, so you get like three chances at it. This was a one OT event, like in the first rounds. And so the guy I was going against wasn't wearing a shirt or a rash guard. He was really slippery, had been slippery kind of the whole day. Not like he was doing anything nefarious, but he just was hard for me to get a hold of because he wasn't wearing a shirt or a rash guard or anything. And he was just really good.
Yeah.
And so when it came to overtime, I was like, all right, I'm going for the arm. And Boogie was like, you need to go back. And in my mind, I was like, no, I'm going for the arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand what you're, I didn't say this out loud to him or whatever in those moments, because it's all happening so fast. Like, we weren't standing there talking to each other. It's like from across the edge of the mat. He's like,
Like
go
he's
back.
like,
And
go back, go back. And
yeah.
you're like, nope.
And I'm, or whatever, trying to cover that up, and act like I'm still, all straight. And I'm like, but this is my spot, you know. And he busted out a hitchhiker on me, and like rolled out pretty quickly, which doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
But in that moment, he timed it. He knew, And maybe that's something
Same confidence you had in the arm take of he was like, oh,
yeah,
when people start here, I always get out that way.
exactly. And he was right that day for whatever the reason was. Uh, and Richie, said that. Not that, he made me feel bad about it or whatever. But after the fact, I went to him and was like, man, I think you see you're right now because I escaped from him too really quickly, but
Yeah,
he had like
yeah.
the couple second maybe advantage on the escape
Right.
time.
Which is what matters in the overtime. When we're starting to
Exactly.
talk overtime,
Yes.
is that we're splitting hairs on like,
In one
half
of
a
them,
second.
right? In one of them, it's only like 2 seconds or something. I
Yeah.
can't remember,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was a very short difference to where if I would have started on his back, I would have definitely been able to
Had just
secure
even
that
if he had
free
escaped, it
step.
would have been a
Yeah.
little bit
His was
longer.
instant, mine was instant plus two.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
like, dang it. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
so lesson learned in the way that it's like, I'm not always right, but that is a very right answer for me most times. And then as the student is like, I'm gonna try to listen to what he says to do in these moments when he's out there coaching me and I'm on the mats instead of always trying to be
Right.
like always in my head. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like choosing what I think is always right because sometimes, again, we have biases too, and we may not see where the trap is for our own biases, and
Yeah.
and other people could see things like that too. Maybe like you said, your move is this. His best thing is defending that, and a cat like PJ with his 50-50 stuff, he'll let you get him deep into that kind of stuff just so he
He
pull
lets
you
you
into his.
believe that you're about to win at it,
Oh
and then he breaks your
no, I'm in
leg. Yeah.
50-50. Bah!
Yeah. And then you can't walk
Oh my
tomorrow.
god, so it's like that thing exists at a high level, all over the place, Um, so that's interesting to me as and I guess I don't know if that answered where the conversation was going, but like you have to
No, I
learn.
did.
You just kind of have to learn to let the athlete learn for themselves. If they believe it, they'll see. If they try it, they'll see. If
Which I get, that's the point in competition, right? The point in competition is to test the things that you know. And if you're testing the things you know, and like, so say in that situation with Richie and you, it's there's the moment where Richie knows that you're sweaty and tired, and he knows you're covering up how tired you are, and you've never been this exhausted in your life. And so it's like, hey, maybe you should go, like we said, with the one that has two little fail safes behind it to buy yourself some time to play
yeah,
the game and win the game.
because
We're
he
not
would know
trying to
my
see who's
poker face.
better.
He would know, like he knows what I'm doing when I'm faking it. He knows what I'm doing when I'm trying to like act tough.
Right.
He knows what I'm
Right.
doing, all that stuff. So like, yeah,
Right.
and so dude, it's that same trap that we talk about the guys coming into the PGF. It's like, oh man, I do this every night in my gym for so many matches or whatever. It's like, bro, I've had 60,000 hours of EBI OT rounds and stuff or whatever it felt like. I've done, man, thousands of live arm bars from that scenario in various ways of setting it up from the spider web or with the other hook to figure out which ways were better or worse for me in that scenario.
And every season, dude, it's like 60% of the guys say that. They come in, especially as the levels gotten better. And it's crazy to me. I was thinking about this the other day when I was editing something where like they said that, and it's like, could you imagine Tom Brady coming in and being like, yeah, we practice like every day is like the Super Bowl, and like this isn't good. Like they acknowledge the fact that like
It's a
game day
grind.
is different.
It's a grind,
Yeah.
and it's a long season. Even though it's a week or whatever, and for us, that's the thing too. Is like every game is just one game though, too. Until it comes a
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
point, and to where that's got to be like like a playoff kind of scenario or a finish it, kind of scenario and stuff like that. At the end of the season stuff, and then that's the thing too. Is like you see, starting the season, they'll be building up, towards that, like you start ramping up, we'll say, right now, spring training for baseball, they're all meeting up in sunny places or whatever and getting reps in together and figuring out their game plans. And the coaches are, talking, and the guys are trying to vibe with each other a little bit before it gets serious, but they're setting the pace to get ready for that,
Yeah.
and telling each other what it's going to take. And some people are too gung ho. and you're gonna
Yeah.
burn up, you're gonna hurt yourself or do whatever it is. And it's like, man, you cannot go all out on every single play.
Well, you can't risk everything on play one.
Well,
I
that's what I'm
mean,
saying. It's like
yeah,
you can't do
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
as hard as you possibly can. There's gonna be some games where you're limited, and you're gonna have to do your best, in that way to just kind of
Right.
get through the game. And yeah, y'all might lose because you're injured or whatever it is, and so okay, it's fine. That's sports, and there'll be more games unless you go out there hurt and then become more hurt, and then there will be less games
Yeah.
forever as that goes along. So I think there's a lot of stuff that's leaning us that way with this. I think that people are going to be having to understand more and more. But dude, again, I don't know if you can without going through it. I bet you can pull up 7 to 10 clips pretty easy here that'll have guys that are high level guys that are saying, "Oh, I didn't know what I was getting into. Oh, if I do it again
Yep.
this next time I'm going to be ready because now I know what I'm doing." You'll see
Yeah.
it
I
every
mean,
season,
we have
multiple times.
PJ. You have PJ that came out there, and he's the best clip I think that we've ever had, where he comes out and he's just like,
Hmm.
this is what it is, boys.
Yeah,
Like we're struggling out here."
yeah. That interview that I had with him on the mat, I think, is the one you're talking about. Yeah,
Yep.
and dude, that was tough for me to see and be there and like try to figure out
Yeah.
how to like keep that story like going the way that it should, maybe to say should, whatever that means, for the show and for him, because he didn't do bad.
No.
He just wasn't able to put up a lot of points on people because they were just skirting it and like getting by, and they were putting up points on each other. And
Yep.
then he had to really kind of pull it out of any positions that he was in because everybody was looking at him so hard. And then Max Hansen was on the Insiders 2 weeks ago, and that's one of the big things he talked about too. Was like, oh, now I know what I'm doing,
Yep.
and being lighter is going to make it easier. So there's that thing too, and I think that people not being lighter in a heavier class, which is I think what we're seeing. The people who are
Yep.
starting to do that now, that's going to be not as effective as looking like the smaller people over the course of a week taking all those matches. If there's enough of the heavier people, they get pounded out,
Yep.
which is not so good for the narrative of the jiu-jitsu that we all know and love, of the little man being able to beat the big man.
Yeah, because all right, on that note, when we're talking about the little man beating the big
Oh,
man,
here he goes.
where everybody like looks to, right, is Marcelo. When we talk about little man versus big man, right?
I mean, there was people before him, but yeah,
No, no, no. I'm just saying, like, that's just the first. All right,
modern, yeah.
modern comes to my mind when I
Mhm.
say that. You could go back and say earlier and talk about like the Gracies and the fact that they were outsized. I think the didn't Pedro Sauer fight a guy that was like 100 pounds heavier than he was? There's like a famous clip of
The
him.
bodybuilder guy thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like there's that. But for one, a lot of those were skill gapped. And I'm not taken away from it. It's just that like we all know that the guy that's been training for 15 years versus the guy that's been training for 2 years, you're gonna see the difference.
Yeah, but definitely size matters, right? Everybody says that and still, wants to think about it. And you see videos all the time now still where these big, weightlifter, power strongmen are being asked by fighters or legitimate, fighters or grapplers what they think, and they think that they would still win because they're just bigger and stronger, and
To
we've seen
some
it play
extent,
out.
they're right, right?
I mean, there's a percentage of that where it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Like the smaller man, this thing in a one-off, one time, no, like no interventions. Then I think the person that knows how to do the real fighting stuff would be able to figure it out and win. If
That's
they
I
fight 5 times, the number is going to shift so far in favor of the bigger person because they're going to be able to figure out what to do and not do better.
Yep.
So I wonder.
Yeah, and the other thing that you
'Cause I've
kind of
had little
prove that.
guys still beat me up. That's to say is that there's still little dudes out there that could take me. So if there's certain ones, you little guys out there, please don't come at me because I'm too
Are
old.
you gonna be the new egghead at open mat?
Look, I'm gonna fight 2 lightweights next time we do a season. How about that?
Okay. I
They
meant
gotta
to
be like
ask
blue
you this
belts
when this
though,
got
2 lightweight blue
pitched.
belts
Are you saying at the same
at the
time,
same
or are they
time.
tag? Okay, okay. I was wondering if this was a tag team situation or like I don't know what it's called where you
It's
fighting
better for them
everybody,
if they do it at the same time. Tag team would just be too easy. I think I could just take the one dude out and then
and then the other guy's left by
just
himself
yeah,
to try
no,
to fight you.
it's just 2 one-on-ones against lightweights. I could run like a lightweight bracket as long as there's blue belts, you know.
Steven versus the
How many blue
lightweights.
belts can I beat in a row? I don't know, man. These blue belts are tough.
I was fixing to say you might want to take that to like 4 stripe white belts.
Yeah, you can't have any tapes on your belt.
1 stripe blue belt or lower.
Mm.
But
But
so
lightweights though, right? Lightweight. So in my mind, okay, yeah. If they're lightweights, I still can handle that. I think.
okay, okay. The well because the size discrepancy thing, like you kind of prove the point that I was thinking of is that so let's talk about like the size difference between you and me. Like
Mm.
if when I'm fighting, when I'm rolling with you, there is a certain extent of agreements that you're allowing for things to for you're playing jujitsu with me to where if we were actually fighting, and I've stated this before, I'd have to hurt you to make something work.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's where jujitsu has gotten to a point where like the small guy can't win without hurting the big guy. To an extent, like if the big guy's experienced, if the big guy's intent is to hurt you, then you have to
Oh
hurt
well,
him
yeah, yeah, of course. Like if the intent's to hurt, then you got to win.
via hurt.
I mean, essentially, right? Like you could not hurt them, I guess, if you have the ability to
But
like get
something
their
as simple as like a
choke choke
stack
or
pass
something
from
like that.
you on
You know.
me hurts.
Yeah,
Does
the
that make
pressure in
sense?
general, right? Yeah,
Just
yeah,
just
pressure.
the
You just
pressure in
need right.
general
No,
hurts.
of course, and that's the thing that I've had to over the years. I've always known that that was true and stuff, but trying to understand from the perspective of the smaller person, like as a coach and a teacher or whatever, too, has been a interesting thing. I don't think that's cut and dry because again every person is different. So even at your weight class, we've talked about this a lot too. There's a lot of variance in the body type of a person who's 185 pounds or whatever that you want to compete at right now. You know, uh, those dudes can be 6'4" or something and 185 pounds, and then there's like 5'9", 185 pounds.
That's a really broad.
And for me, experience wise, it's like around that weight class and the taller they are has been the more difficult person for me to physically deal with more often than not.
Yeah. That's the weight class of the athlete. That's where your NFL
They're
athletes, your NBA
smaller than
athletes.
me, but they're more athletic if they're, what I mean, in general, like we'll
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
generalize here
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
They're more athletic than I am, but some of them are taller
Yep.
and can reach me from further away. So they're faster, their movements are quicker and things like that. They have a better sense of movement than I had in that way too. So it made it really difficult to get in on them. And then once I did, sometimes I was in a space that they managed that was different than what I was used to being in. And so it didn't work the way that it had been working in a
Yeah.
previous, iteration of the thing. And so I don't know. It's just weird. You can't really hang it on big and small because sometimes, in that same whatever that guy is a match. And then, a few weeks later or next event, I'm going against a dude who's, 6'4" and 280 something. So he's got 100 pounds difference, and it's like, man, all right, that's in the weight class too. So, or absolute. So Now you got to be able to physically handle this. Well, now I can't try to grapple like the big dude in this match because if I do, I'm going to get smacked more, more like because he's the big dude. I can't
Right.
really win that one. So now I have to grapple like a small person in practice. It still won't be what a 130-pound like Geo can do or whatever,
Right. Because there's spaces that you can't fit in.
but I have to use the same strategy or the same mentalities or whatever, the same positional awarenesses, that you would need to make in those ways because if they fill the same space, it's still going to hurt me as much as that opposite would hurt, you
Right.
know, depending on the scale. So there is no big man, small man, blah 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 stuff unless all you're doing is ever going against one specific type person.
But if you ever get outside of that, then
It's varies greatly.
yeah.
Experience,
Yeah.
varies very really greatly. Um, that's why it's hard. That's why it's hard. There's so much variance. That's the reason it's hard. And we can't
Okay.
tell you the variances that you're gonna have to deal with every time.
Because it's going to change.
And so you have to know that, right?
Like the teacher has to know that.
No, the student.
Oh, the student, like you have to know that it's, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point because that's as the student, sometimes like your urge, especially as you get experience, is to see the thing they're teaching and be like, well, that wouldn't work because I would do this. And you're like, well, if you do that, I'm going to do this. But that's not what we're talking about.
Not what we're talking about.
So you have to understand as you're being taught something that this isn't always exactly how it's going to look. This is a
Very, very
general idea.
and this is where those arguments are coming from now again to where that type of teaching and learning of show a specific sequencing of movements where the one person's doing it to the other person is maybe not the best way to do
Mm.
what we're doing. Not that, and I'm not going to argue that it doesn't work because, again, I've seen success from being in that environment as well. But I can see now some of the traps that I fell into younger were those like fallacies about the one true way of doing it, whatever it was. The higher ranked person that showed it to us, it was like, oh, well, this is the way you got to do it. And if I couldn't do it, I was like, there's something wrong with me. I got to make it, I got to do it that way
Yeah.
or I'm wrong. And that's not okay for me. I want to be good. I want to do, I want to do what the coach said, but I can't do that. So what do I need to do? So then I just started making it up. I just started making whatever I could think of work the way that they were doing it. And sometimes that just took time. Or then, you see somebody else do it another way and it's like, that's dumb. But then you try it one time and you're like, oh wow, that was a lot easier than what I was doing. I better not tell anybody. Sneak
So
it.
not only is the lesson is it that it's okay for them to be wrong, it's okay for you to be wrong.
Yeah, dude, man, that was one of the like again, having mentors and stuff, but like Bill from San Diego, uh, one time, I was talking to him about stuff and I was like, God, man, I really, really hate making mistakes, just talking about stuff for work or whatever. And I can't remember exactly what he said about it, but it's just like, man, everybody's gonna make mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not really trying anything different or new. So that's, you should be wanting to be okay with mistakes. That's all right. And for me, it was like, no, I've always been like conditioned. I felt like that mistakes were really bad and you would be punished, essentially for making a mistake, even if it was a, well intentioned mistake of sorts, So that there's a lot of like things that go into that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Egg says you got to know the rules before you can break the rules. I'm a big fan of that.
There he goes. There's the rules guy coming in.
I mean, like I
Well,
always like that. I can't remember
it's
which
correct. It's
artist
true.
is quoted saying that. I'm gonna butcher this. I almost feel like it was Andy Warhol, which is hilarious if this is who that was. But that said that, like, you know, in order to like break the rules of art, well, you got to know the rules first. Like, you got to know what you're supposed to be doing in order to break them in a way that makes sense. Because otherwise, you're just kind of making stuff up at that point.
Yes, and then that goes into again some of the stuff about the approach, of the constraints led or whatever people are calling it. Again, we're bringing that up because it's just the hot thing, and I've actually been reading more about it from other avenues of it. But like, crap, what'd you say? What was the last thing you said? Because that's what I was going to say about it.
I
I
was
just
talking
wanted to
about you
reference.
have to know the rules in order to break the rules. And then I was referencing to in the art world that like that's a way that like modern
Okay, yeah,
art.
yeah. It's like okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like when people do stuff as the coach or the instructor or whatever, it's like you're trying to create the situation where they will come up with the optimal solution for themselves, whatever that may be. And if you see that they are choosing one of the lesser, like optimal kind of things of it, then you, as the instructor, and this is where it's harder for you, is you must now figure out a way to fix that without telling them or whatever exactly what you would do or whatever. It's just you could tell them stuff. That's not wrong either. It's like you can tell them things that's part of teaching or whatever. But you want to give them something they can feel that will help them understand the feeling of their body doing it in space. And the randomizedness of that may vary depending on what you want to do. But that really repetitive motion on the same small stuff is not really good. And one of the things that was really interesting in the book, I say reading, I guess as a audible book, but
That
like
counts.
yeah, whatever. It's just same.
Information.
I could buy the book too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whatever. Uh, but they analyzed blacksmiths hammer strikes or whatever.
Mm,
And it's like what made it better was it the people who had all the experience or whatever they could do it in such a way that it took so many strikes to do whatever the given task was of again you have to read it for yourself to get all the ideas, but this is generalization. It took them x amount of strikes to get it done. The less skilled person, it took them x amount to get it done, which was more. And so then what we assume is that the person who's been doing it longer gets it done with less strikes because they can do the same thing
right.
repeatedly and get the same basically outcome from doing the same exact thing over and over. And so since they've done it over and over so many times, then they've gotten better at it, right? That's reps. Just because you've done it so many times, you can repeat this process. You're basically like a machine, right? Hammer up, hammer down, hammer up, hammer down, whatever way that your arm does that on your body, you develop the way, that is
Yeah.
because you've been shown the way. And then now that you've done it this way, this is the only way that it works. And that's how you do it. When in reality, what they found is that the newer people were trying to do the same thing over and over again. And that's why they weren't hitting it as well. And the experienced people had variance in the way they would swing
They
it
develop their own
each
way.
time. Well, just each swing was different because sometimes something else would catch their attention. And then as they were swinging, they wouldn't be doing exactly what they were doing,
They would
but their arm
adjust.
would adjust however it took to hit the spot.
Huh.
So they could hit it without looking. No matter
Yeah.
what, the arm path wasn't exactly the same. They could turn, a little slightly, but they could still, I mean, whatever that was, they would still hit the spot with degrees of variance on how they were doing it. It was still the same thing in the same space, even, but they had a slight variance in whatever. And so you can't really do it the same exact way. Same thing we're saying is like the same thing. It doesn't ever exist that way because eventually you're going to get stronger too. The hammer gets lighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
And so
then
then the
that makes
effort goes into a different
a different kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, the
You know, but
kinetic
maybe
energy changes on what you have to use to generate each movement. And yeah, I mean, and I was just thinking about it as you were saying that, as the when you're watching people teach, how often do you see them teaching and they're saying one thing, and if you really look at what they're doing, you're like, you're doing something different down here with your feet. What are
feel
you doing
versus
here?
feel.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, ah, well, he moved his hip over here, and I had to like adjust for that. But that's well, okay, that's a variant.
And then what I want you to, and then what I want is for you to know when that's happening. And so you can feel how to cover their hips or whatever with your hips, or how to maintain chest to chest without being rolled over in that same scenario. Uh, when however that's happening is happening, even if they're big or small. But also then you got to understand, oh, maybe this dude's body is too round. You know, it's like a big heavyweight dude for me, and I can't get my knees in this same position or my arms in that same position that I could on a smaller person. So then
Yeah,
now this move does not work on this
yeah,
person. There's moves that
yeah,
do not work on certain people, for you,
yeah.
for sure,
Because
for
there's
everybody. They just don't work
the
on them.
handholds aren't in the same place.
It
The
just doesn't
things,
exist for you unless you can do something
yeah.
oddly specific, which is going to be hard. You could do it in another random way. How many how many leg triangles are there? What we
How
call
many like
triangles.
variants of the triangle with your
Yeah,
legs?
where you have the arm in and your legs are wrapped around their head and shoulder, where there's one leg up here by their neck on either side, and then one of their arms is inside, and the
I'd say
shoulder,
four.
their one shoulder's cutting off the side, and then your leg is cutting off the other side.
I'd say there's four main like positions that it could be in, but then there's infinite possibilities of the angle,
So what's the best way?
whichever one works.
Okay. So you can only do it the other way that you learned the first time, though,
No,
from your back.
like no, like that's like the
But that's
if
how
you
you
can
would. And that's the argument that was like. But that's how you would learn it. It's like you have the sleeve. You push one, pull one, throw your legs up. Push one, pull one, throw your legs up. Push one, pull one, throw your legs up. You know, and it's like that's how it's done. And then
and then you
obviously if
spend
you
your
just
whole time in closed guard sitting there trying to push and pull, trying
and
to
then
do
it
it, and you're like,
doesn't
why
work
can't
for
I get a
real. Yeah,
triangle? Because
you
they
want them.
smash through every time I
They
do
need to
it.
be
Well,
moving and
yeah.
catching them in motion while they're doing something with those arms. While they're trying to push and pull on your body, that thing becomes easier for you to do. That's the only reason it works.
And I'm back around to the warm ups.
There you go.
Almost like it was developed with
It's a
that in
game.
mind.
It's
Yeah,
again, it's just
yeah,
like it's all people's idea of what this thing is they're doing, and then and Eddie said it. You got the clips of it too that you could pull up. That you even made videos about. Is like you got an hour to use this time. What do you want to do with it? And we've talked about it too. He's like you don't have to do these warm ups. He's like I challenge you everybody here to come up with your
your
own
own
version of
warm
this.
ups. Yeah,
If you think it, and if you think that this is more important, then you should put that in there 4 or 5 times and as part of your thing. I think this is very important. So that's why this shows up in A, B, D, and F of the
yeah,
warm-ups, because it should be there because it's such a big part of everything that you should probably be doing. And that's
yep.
why he created it that way, which is essentially, yes, that is this again, without maybe calling it that or giving it, there's it's just a variation of it. And like I think if you want to get really again, getting into the literature, there's variations on what you would call the names of things based on the constraints or how you may, what you might do, like disconnecting movements or whatever, where you're only allowed to use your arms and your legs or something like that is not necessary. There's a certain style of something that's called that's not necessarily eco or whatever people are. Again, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're out there and you're one of those dudes, I don't know. So shut up. Um,
It's
I'm
the
learning.
the
I'm learning, dude. I'm a white belt at the information side of that, and so I don't know that it's 100% right, or what. I know nothing is 100% right. That's what I know, and so if I can
well,
better myself and my teaching strategies, that's
yeah,
what I want to try to do. And then
yeah.
there's lots of literature on this, and oh, I'm a nerd like that. I like that stuff.
Oh, I
Music's
can dig
really good
in
for
and
certain
find out
things for
more.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love to sit here and do anything I'm doing around the house, listening to a book instead of playing music much these days, and that's been for a long time. I've always really loved information, which is also maybe a trap because information is not knowledge of how to do it, right? It's like
yeah.
oh yeah, I know how that goes. I've read about it, but then you actually, like you said, you got that electrical wire up there, and now you start seeing that stuff like sprinkle across your hands right there.
Oh, it's real.
What does that mean? Right? You read about that, or that is now what are you gonna do? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that I sure has to cause a specific feeling inside a person for the first time. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? When you touch electrical stuff or whatever, and you see something that's wonderful, you know, like that does something inside your body. It could be, good or bad in that way too. And that again goes back to jujitsu stuff, grappling or whatever. You know,
When you see the connection, like when you
when you
grab a hold of
yourself
something and you're
for
like,
yourself,
oh,
right? How
yeah,
many there's been a thing that somebody did or said or showed or whatever for sure that I was like, oh,
is a
that
tree
is,
really even a tree?
and it makes sense if you really get down to what the question is.
Yeah,
If you really want to think about it, everything on a base level, you know, and there's better and worse ways to do stuff in given scenarios, but there's generally, as humans, ways that we move and don't move well. Each person has things that allow that to be better and worse. And so, whatever your given sport is, the way that you move is going to help make that better or worse for you, So, like, being like a goalie or something like that, there's certain things that would make you better at that than other
yeah.
things. That doesn't mean you can't be better at other things and shouldn't be doing other things to help like do that. But what is it that gives them that kind of stuff? Uh, in the book, it says that there's a thing kind of like people, and this is obvious. It's very obvious. A person who's more athletic can wait.
Wait
They
on
get
what?
information
Okay, 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 okay.
because they can cover the gap.
I got you.
So if you can explode laterally or whatever that is to block the balls, and you can wait to see which way it's going for a half a second long or whatever that for a fraction of a second longer, because you can
Right.
make up the gap athletically. Oh well, then now you're just better at that. But a person who doesn't have that ability, they got to try to go faster or earlier to make up the athletic gap, which causes either early or lateness in those ways because you
Yeah.
don't really you have to wait or you have to go early, and so it's like for the other persons that they could just wait and kind of figure out how to cover the gap because that's what they do, and you can do it better or worse again based on yourself.
But then what happens to the Nicky Rods and those when they get to the elite level? Then the information is important,
Made $1 million.
right? Good. All right. Never mind.
Look, and
Touche.
they've had instructors or whatever people teach, and they do things, and I'm not saying it's that either, but like there's a level of that just happens, like, and it's true,
Yeah.
and so like he's not just athletic, he's not
No.
just
Yeah.
that
I'm
same.
not arguing that at all
No,
either.
that says
Yeah.
that he over the years he's grown into a very, very, very formidable grappler, but he really only does the stuff that he's going to be good at. He doesn't really waste a bunch of time on things like exotic guard play. It's not he'll sit there
Yeah.
his butt to wrestle up to the single leg, which everybody's like, oh my god. It's like, yeah, dude, that's been a thing. Like wrestling up from your butt for a single leg, that's like one of the OG moves. But
Yeah.
he's so athletic that now it's a trap that people want to come up and try to like walk up on the guard play almost, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then he's coming to wrestle up, but you almost
Yeah.
can't stop it now because it is what
You're
it
too
is.
far committed.
Yeah, and because he's such a great low level, not low level as far as like skill, but like on the floor low level
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
grappler.
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
can grab you and hold you and pull you from low
That
spots in the ground.
freestyle like ability to ankle
Ankle
pick
pick,
and play it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fast, man. It's really dynamic, and it looks like even if you are like looking for it, it's like he's almost like a good pitcher in a way or whatever. It's like I'm gonna throw you this, here it comes, and you
Now,
still can't stop it.
now swing. Ah,
Yeah, you know
you
what I
almost
mean. And
had
so
it.
it's
Yeah.
like that's it. And so he's really figured out how to get to people's backs,
Yeah.
and if he gets to people's backs, it's a lot of trouble for them.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of his better plays. And I think that's again that's playing to your strengths. That's being athletic, and that's sports specifically, using it to your advantage. You don't have to know everything to be good at your sport. To be
You
the
just have to
athlete,
be good
you
at
just got to
your
be good at doing
lane.
the job.
Yeah.
That's the coach's job, is to know how to have all the information to help you figure out which way you're going to evolve into this ecosystem of the athletic world that you're trying to be in.
Because you can spend your time trying to find that information, which is the pursuit and that whatnot, or you can spend your time getting good, and then the person that has the information sprinkles the information when you need it on that, and that's how you end up with the greats and the things like that. And then that's why they also argue the fact that, like, in some of these sports, or a lot of these sports, the greats, the goats, are terrible coaches.
Yeah, because they could just do it,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like you just do it, and make up the gap this way. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and they have insights, and things that could be helpful to other people that are like that, but they're not always able to help everybody. They're not,
yeah. They're not
always
everybody's coach. They're the
can't be.
other
They're too
champ's coach.
too high level. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You
You
got
got
to be
you
able to do all
too.
these other prerequisites before I can even really help you. Because if you can't do all that stuff, you're not even in this predicament.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to do advanced math, and you haven't done basic. I said that the other day on something. Where did this come
Yeah,
from?
you're trying
Was
to do
this us?
calculus and you hadn't passed basic addition.
Yeah, was that us?
Maybe. I don't feel like I've heard that analogy. I liked it. Clip it.
I was talking to somebody, but yeah, it's that thing, right? And that's kind of where we were coming up when the school was starting a little bit for us, as I was trying to get certain things across, and people were wanting to branch out further, and
Yeah,
it was like, you don't really need this yet, but they wanted it, and they were going to do it
yeah,
anyway. So then I
yeah,
was like, all right, I got to figure out how to use this, and
yeah,
show again, either for or against what is going to be like, by doing it, or teaching it, or whatever it is, figuring it out myself, going into it, and seeing what it is. And it's like, okay, this is what that is. Here's the value. This is where I think that there's problems at, and then watching other people with other sizes, body types, and things go through it and use it and not use it. Uh, so yeah, that like a lot of stuff like that's been
yeah,
really good. Um, but yeah, so guys, we're really got a heart out today pretty soon. I feel like uh, we want
yeah,
to hit you guys with some segments. All right. And we got a bunch of ideas. So some of these are going to be bangers. Some of these are going to be not bangers. And that's okay. We're ready to take that. Uh, we're gonna start hitting you guys with these pretty soon. Today we're not there, but if there's any specific PGF topic or idea or question or thing that you may have, we'll cut you a promo based on this idea potentially here, but maybe top 10 or top match or favorite something of a season, anything you could think of, who had the worst breath during the interview or anything like that.
Well,
So
one of the places they can go to find these moments and these things, and they can go relive it. For one, I know over on the PGF World YouTube channel, they've got a marathon of season 6 running. I believe the rest of the marathon is going somewhere as well, where they'll be starting. They've done a few where I've seen season 1 that's going up and things like that. So you can go over there and relive all the glory. And there is a documentary called Grapplers that we have 2 seasons that are documented, which is that would be season 6 and season 7. And both of those
wait,
series
I
are
thought
out.
5 was the first
Huh?
one.
Was 5 the first one?
Yeah, leaving
I'm
Decatur.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. 5 was the first one. That's Grapplers, No Gi, No Money. And then we
Mhm.
have Grapplers, Legends, and what was the title of that one?
Ooh.
Oof, I
Mm,
fumbled the ball there,
part
Keelan.
2.
Part 2, the Grappler series that documented season 6 is out there over there where you can watch all 5 series, all 5 episodes. And then we have Grapplers, the changing of the guard. Grapplers 3 is dropping so far. Last I talked, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And look, we're gonna have a lot of stuff to talk about with that too. We're gonna be digging into things that happen during those episodes, things that we were thinking about behind the scenes, maybe from what happens during those episodes coming up. So there's a lot of good ideas that we've been working on for you guys here at the Dream Show live. So we're excited.
You're excited.
I heard rumor about a Mid-South Classic coming back also,
Okay.
potentially.
Okay.
Two dudes I
Potentially the
know,
Mid-South
couple dudes
Classic.
I know are talking about it, and I don't know. Somebody said $5,000 for a winner. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. Again,
Allegedly.
it could or could not be
Allegedly.
true that there might be a $5,000 prize at the Mid South coming up soon or not. Allegedly, you could,
Hypothetically. Allegedly.
you know,
There's
if it was going to happen, then it would happen. You know what I'm saying?
if it were to happen, what weight class would potentially, hypothetically, allegedly, would the weight class
so what
be?
I had overheard through the door was that maybe 175 ish.
Okay.
To kind of give a another shot to those guys,
Okay.
because it's been a season or two.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Around. What's up?
Who's the one person you want to see?
Oh, at 175,
Yeah.
man, I want Andy.
Andy Varela.
Yeah,
Okay.
at the Mid South.
That'd be fun.
Speaking it into existence, guys. Whoever you are that are in the corporate room there, let's work this thing out.
The corporate heads at Mid South Classic.
Those dudes, they got a lot of
Guys,
work.
Those
A lot of
guys.
work. They need help.
All right. Well, everybody be on the lookout for grapplers. Changing the guard
Changing the
coming
guard.
this week. New episodes are dropping. There's all kinds of stuff happening. There's all kinds of stuff moving around. I saw something about UFC doing a FPI in March. That sounds exciting. There's all kinds of stuff building up behind the scenes of the Jiu Jitsu world. Anything else you want to tell the
PGF
people?
for all these exciting things going on in Jiu Jitsu too. I'm just going to be cocky a little bit right there, but I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it
out there.
Everybody's doing great work. There's a lot of great work going on out there, and we're all pushing it forward. But definitely, I think a lot of what we were doing early has really inspired a lot of things. And so there's going to be, that's a segment that's coming up. Things that the PGF inspired. Sponsored
You heard
by
it here first.
whoever you want to be.
Sponsored by the Dream Show. Live. Cool. Thank you for everybody coming out. We'll see y'all next week, sometime around 10 a.m.